So you're over here wondering, you're like, dang on, Lex, you talk all this in astrology about how possessions give you power, and you say this all the time, and no one even knows what you're talking about. What's the big deal? What does this mean? What would it look like living as intended? Well, let me tell you something. It would look a little bit like this. You have a person, you got a house, duh. And in your house, you got sweatpants, coffee, beans, all sorts of stuff. Well, possessions giving you power would be like your friend that you haven't seen in a while decided to come by. You didn't even have to go out and get anything special. Maybe you picked up a couple snacks for the trip. But in that trip, say they're there and they need something, and you having it, the ability to be able to give it to them gives you this sense it's good for your well-being, and it's good for your dignity and your self-respect, and it's good for your insides in ways that's hard to define. So it's kind of interesting because this is on like a large different scale, where it's like possessions of like health, things that are necessary, things that seem kind of simple but still really matter, things that you might write off as unnecessary but completely are. Like for a big wheeler or something, you're like, you don't need to go ride your big wheel or your three-wheeler, your dirt bike, or you don't need to do that with those really cool speed cars that you see on the road sometimes that are like these open three-wheelers or whatever. It's like, maybe, well, that possession, given the mind power, it's like you might not realize the benefits and gains to get an opportunity to ride that, say for 2 hours, 4 hours on the weekend, 40 minutes sometimes here and there, whatever. We kind of, I guess, as like, you know what I mean, people on TikTok, like, it's like, we are humanity, we are the human race, this is what life is, people are getting behind this in the name of Jesus. People recognize, like, from an astrological point of view, these possessions give you power. This is what, you know, the Father's kind of getting us to talk about and think about. Kind of hard way to put it in the right terms, but so if, say you don't, so you're like, well, how do we live as intended? Does everyone need to own one of these? You see, I should get, like, you know, a visual here. It's just a three-wheeler, you know what I mean? It's yellow, it's blue, you've got one, your kid's got one. Does everyone want to own one of these? Is there, and possess one, or do we make it to a point where it becomes a social need, and it's one of those things where, like, there's a certain amount of them, and then you have access to them to the certain days, and everyone just rotates? It's really as simple as limit as intended. You're like, well, you know, it makes, what you're saying, that makes a lot of sense. It's like, it should apply to you in ways that make a lot of sense, because you're born to be a part of it, you're born to digest it and understand it. The things that inside of you that you wish you could have come to life should come out. People are, you know, and then it's like, oh no, don't say that. People get all triggered, they're spiral, they have the psychological states like, it pleases the Father for us to go without certain things because it's good for us, and they're like, I'm glad with what he gave me, I don't want a nicer house, this is all I want, and yeah, this, and they get all, I never wanted to see Hawaii anyway, I never wanted to do this. People get attached to their psychological needs and drives that kept them strong while struggling, and then people break this down and they let it go. I'm just pointing it out. It pleases the Father for us to discuss this, to not be scared of each other, to come together. It pleases the Father for us to get to know each other, so I'm going to take some time to tell some things about myself, make sure people get the opportunity to really enjoy each other and spread his living word about what's intended. Remember, every spirit has your individual body, and you got to treat people with that whole impression that they got a lot processing or whatnot. You don't want to be crazy and insane. And one of the most important things you can do is forgive people. Don't hold a grudge or nothing. You got to watch out for that. The Father's very delighted in us when we eat his foods as intended, and he's delighted in us when we work out for him. So if you think through, you know, about food addiction and whatnot, and drug addiction, and you think what keeps people strong, and people are talking about how to overcome and master this drug problem. Another thing that I think is recognizing that some of the things that we would think are like really absurd, no one really knows where it comes from. It's like, you know, the whispers of a demon. I don't know how to even get this, or if that's inappropriate to even say, but sometimes you think, well yeah, that would break, I would think that if I went to go do a sit-up. It's like, well, like, I don't know why we all went through this huge wave of like thinking like we're too fat to do it, it'll never get done, or we couldn't set out to get these goals. But maybe it's the whole point is to bring us together and have the same mentality about how to please the Father about it. You're really working out because it pleases him, and take care of yourself, and you're eating foods because it pleases him, and then it takes all that insecurity and inability away. You know, it's kind of something personal in your life, because you watch people struggle with food addiction. Maybe their weight, they're like, dang on, I wish I was smaller, and I'm stuck drinking the soda and I can't control myself or whatever, because addiction really does hit like that. But I remember thinking a little bit about, you know, how to get health foods, and recognizing when we were kids, they did offer us a salad, you know, and looking back, like, the salad's really not all that great in minerals and whatnot. But if you think, if we took the opportunity to please the Father and stop trying to food waste, and actually try to distribute foods to people, make sure it didn't get wasted, and, you know, recognize some of us, well, this and that, and take take responsibility and make sure of it, because people don't want to waste their foods. Facts on it. Please, conserving your resources is one of the main things you can do to please the Father. He likes that when you're mindful of him and his resources. Like, you recognize from two different worlds. Like, if you live off a well, you got to think, well, I can only use but so much water, otherwise I'm going to run out. And in the city, you never run out of water necessarily, because they're going to filter it and they can supply it because they're cleaning it and whatnot. I guess sometimes in some cities there might be droughts, like maybe you live in like a dry place, but a lot of the times people are guaranteed the opportunity to shower, so it's a totally different headspace to be in, because you realize if you shower but a certain amount, you physically are going to run out of water. So that's what it's like growing up in the country. And people, another thing is, in the city, people can't really drive, which is something about allowing people this opportunity to take on these challenges, and it makes them feel good about themselves. I think it makes you a stronger driver if you get exposed to it younger, not necessarily always, but then there's all this fear involved. I don't know. So what the Father intended for us was to not talk to each other any other way except, "You're adorable, I appreciate you, look, I know you matter, I get that you make mistakes, I know that you care, I know that you're trying your best," and stuff like that. And you can see this showing up on TikTok, where this girl, she's like, "Keep it up, cutie," and she's talking about it. She's really spot on. Like, a lot of this stuff is just, a different image of his truth and coming out in different people, and he's just using his people to talk about the living word, which is to love and to forgive and be open and be accepting to people and to do good in life. We're breaking down this mask of in between, where you realize your face isn't who you are. It's about the person that you are, and it always will be. Beauty comes from the inside out.